So we have two main characters, the twins with 5 different names each, who are both headstrong, sassy Gemini who just got kicked out of foster care in modern Fantasyland. Think Winx Club, but on steroids. So to get gabloons, the book opens with both of them doing sketchy shit. Darcy is almost arrested for breaking and entering into her old house to get some cash when Mr. Dimples comes in and says, unhand her, then steals the money she was trying to steal. Rude. Then she runs away. Next we have Tori Vega. Tori Vega riding a stolen $45,000 bike through the city like she's auditioning for Too Fast, Too Furious before pawning it off for 5 pennies for rent. Then Mr. Dimples shows up again, kinda like he's magic or something, and demands to speak with her. She's like, And he's like, well, guess I'll follow you home and force myself inside your house using dark mind control magic powers. So then the 3 of them are sitting in the living room and Mr. Dimple says, listen here, bitches, you are not human and you need to attend magic phase school where I'm a professor, no one is gonna like you, and you will be relentlessly bullied, harassed, and almost killed every single day. So what do you say? And they're like, oh my god, I'm not doing that. No way, you psycho. And he's like, I'll pay you. Then they are immediately whisked off to the awakening ceremony, which is something all new recruits are required to do so that they can be sorted into their houses. There is Gryffindor, Slytherin, Hufflepuff, and Ravenclaw. Just kidding, their system is far more complex. They have fire, air, water, and earth house, and they are categorized based on the type of magic they have, which is a very straightforward system as it is so rare to have more than 1 elemental power, maybe 2 on the very outside, 3 being impossible, and 4, don't even think about it. It's not happening. They also have an order system, and your species will determine how you recharge your magical powers. There are werewolves, vampires, sirens, dragons, pegasi, minotaurs, medusas, nymphs, Cerberus, hydras, hydras. The worst class to be sorted into being pegasi, meaning anytime somebody goes My Little Pony on them, the school is like, boo, tomato. Now back to the ceremony. This is a quick summary of how it went down. Water, earth, fire, air. Long ago, the 4 nations lived in harmony. That is, until the 2 pick-me's arrived. Feisty, unwavering, with the power of all 4 elements, completely unheard of before, have come back to do something. And here is where we get introduced to the 4 leaders of each house. Max, the siren of House Water, Darius, the dragon of fire, Seth, the werewolf of air, and Caleb, the vampire of earth, also known as the celestial heirs. Each of them belongs to one of the 4 ruling families in Solarius, the world that we're currently residing in, so they are like royalty. The problem, they only get to rule because the previous king and queen were murdered and left no kin behind. Until now. In addition to being the Avatar, Tori and Darcy are the long-lost daughters to the murdered queen and king of Solarius, making them the rightful heirs to the throne. So these 2 girls who just found out 15 minutes ago they are in fact not even human are now target practice for these 4 powerful, rich, sexy heirs with super expensive designer Gucci, Louis, Rolex sweatshirts that they can afford because they are so hot and wealthy. And did I mention they are hot and wealthy? The storyline is very complex, so I just wanted to make sure you guys are following. And because these 2 girls are so powerful, they aren't allowed to be in the same house. So Darcy picks Aqua House with Seth, and Tori picks Fire House with Darius. Then, after some serious school-sanctioned hazing, the boys, like in Otomi games, have default character settings and always pick to behave in one of 2 ways. 1, they overtly bully the twins by setting them on fire or forcing them to jump from buildings to prove their powers, or they covertly bully them. Psst, 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 psst. Psst, psst, psst. Oh my gosh, maybe they're finally warming up to us. We are totally gonna post this on Facebook, which is just the more degenerate Twitter, if that's even possible. Hashtag humiliation, hashtag give up your right to the throne. And whenever this occurs, their friend, who I think only knows 3 Spanish words, gives them one of these and asks, everything bien? Like, no, Diego, everything is not bien. And then that repeats over and over and over again. So in addition to just trying to survive the school academically, they now have Ariel and the 3 Nepo babies accosting them at every turn. And no one does anything about it, including the teachers, because like, they're hot, so it's okay. And even after going through all that, they are still not considered familia of la escuela unless they can pass the reckoning, which is just a fancy word for midterm exams that if they don't pass, expulsion immediately. Like, not cool, guys. Test anxiety is bad enough without a big scary name for these barely puberty passers. So this reckoning poses a big problem for the twins, as the only way they can get their inheritance is by graduating. To which the heirs say, not on my Swarovski bedazzled Rolex watch, and so they bully them more. So remember when I mentioned the class system and how charging power is species specific? Like werewolves get their powers from the moon. Well, some species require feeding on others' powers to charge their own, like vampires and sirens. And with the twins being glowing beacons of power, you can guess how that's working out for them. But they are so lucky because Caleb decides to make Tori his source and Orion makes Darcy his source, so no one else can touch them. All against their will, of course, because Faye don't ask for permission, they take. So romantic. So while Tori is avoiding being Caleb's personal canteen, she accidentally overhears a cryptic conversation between Orion and Darius, which Darius was like, we have to take care of them now before they become too powerful. Orion goes, Mercury is in Gatorade, we can't, making Darius go. Then Tori goes to her sister and says, they want to kill us, we need to become stronger, they can't be trusted. Darcy is like, say less, sis. Then in the next scene, they're both drunk, dry humping, and grinding all over the airs like Captain Heat in front of everyone. The only thing that was able to break up this dance floor soiree was that one of their friends from the Almighty Sovereign Society, the jokes just write themselves with that one, gets attacked and almost killed. There's also something about an anonymous Facebook messenger that warns them about dangers and says they can't trust anybody because their parents were murdered. But that's not super important. Cutscene, fast forward a ways. And we are in Siren Lessons, who charge their powers by feeding on emotions, and Fish Fury Max is like, tell me your biggest fears, Vegas, in front of the entire class. To which the twins say, screw you, Max, I hate you, the heirs, and hopefully you choke on fish bones. All in their mind, of course. They save all the spicy comebacks for their dreams. So anyways, Darcy has a fear of abandonment after going from foster home to home, and an ex-boyfriend that took her virginity and immediately left her, leading her to dye her hair black and blue to mimic the emotional bruise that this relationship left on her. And Tori also has ex-boyfriend trauma from a car crash into a river that made her scared of water and drowning. Which, given their experience here at school, having secrets that can be used against them like this out in the open for everyone to know should bother them, but it doesn't. Maybe because by this point in the book, the girls have become pretty close to the heirs and they have formed some genuine romantic feelings for each other. That is not at all a form of manipulation. I mean, Darcy was going to the school dance with Seth and Tori hooked up with Caleb. So now we can start moving towards our happily ever after. Now we're at the night of the dance. Darcy and Seth are hanging out together and they start getting a little bit freaky on the benches outside. And in the middle of this passion makeout session, Seth decides to cut off all of Darcy's hair, record the whole thing, and post it on Facebook, all while Darius mind controls Tori to jump into a pool that is swirling with magic while all the other heirs and a bunch of other students watch. And then just when she's on the verge of drowning, she is saved by her sister and Orion. The end. I wish I was joking. So this book was recommended by a booktuber I just recently found, and all I know going into it was a fae fantasy that was going to obliterate me emotionally. And I was like, yes, feed me, please. I am so hungry. And the series is books long, so I was ready to be taken on a journey. And holy shit, did this take me for a spin, but not in a good way. I have one major issue with this book that ruined the entire experience for me, and it is the emotional maturity of the characters. Maybe it's because my frontal lobe is fully developed, but the second I see a book use the freshly 18 trope, I get the biggest ick, especially when there is as much sexual harassment as there is in this book. It makes me feel like if it was possible for them to go lower, they absolutely would, which is just very uncomfortable. And while many times in my head when I see this trope, I just age up the characters and then I can enjoy the book for what it is, this book made that process so difficult because the whole book felt like a caricature of 18-year-olds. It's like all the stereotypes old people think about teenagers were slapped on the page and they called it a day. And in doing so, it made the characters feel emotionally 14. So with the sexual elements, it felt a little bit more disgusting. I just could not get away from it. I was rolling my eyes anytime I saw any of the Facebook posts and the dialogue. I would need a heavy power eyewash station to eradicate those scenes from my memories. The posts that I read on their Facebook were, one, they were atrocious. The bullying towards the end was atrocious. The lack of consent from every character was skin crawling. Now, I like the bully trope. I love dark romance. I love heavy enemies to lovers. I eat that up. So I'm not shitting on the readers who like this content or this book, because girl, I get it. I'm one of y'all. But for me, there are just some lines that should not be crossed, yet this book had the characters tap dancing all over them. One thing about these tropes, in order for them to be done well, the characters need to be redeemable, and in order for them to be redeemable, like I mentioned before, there needs to be a certain level of maturity. Of course, there needs to be an apology and some groveling, in addition to the hidden backstory that once revealed makes you understand where they're coming from. But because of the original problem I have, which is the emotional maturity of the characters, I do not believe that they are mature enough to offer such an apology that would make me forgive them in any capacity. Now, I'm all for homicide attempts, alright? I know that's crazy to say, but if done well, it just adds that extra angst to the story. However, you cannot undo using somebody's biggest traumas against them. Also, the back and forth being nice. As a reader, I lose trust in the characters because once they start trying to go for this redemption arc, I don't know if it is real or performative, and I just really do not enjoy that yo-yo relationship where it's the constant together, something happens, they're together, they're working it out, another something happens. I prefer a more linear growth with some setbacks, but this story just really was not for me. The male characters are very unlikable. I will never like them. And I'm supposed to believe they're supposed to run Solaris, like they've been trained their whole lives for the throne. When? By who? Because they need to be investigated, fired, and the standards for running the country need to be reevaluated. I also found the female characters to be unlikable because, girl, stand up. Why do you keep going back to these men after all of the BS? Being hot can only get you so far. Every time something happens, they're like, oh my god, what an alpha hole. Darn them for being so sexy. Not that I noticed, of course. Sure, of course you didn't notice. I totally believe that. It was just kind of frustrating to read, especially after they were portrayed as spunky fighters in the beginning. They are only spunky in their minds or behind the heirs' backs. They rarely stand up to them in important moments, and they just accept the bad treatment. It was just overall a letdown. Had the characters been written better and had there been actual plot, and what I mean by actual plot, I'm truly asking for the bare minimum because there was no plot in this book. Absolutely nothing happened aside from the bullying. And because there are two female main characters, it's doubled and given to the next twin. And as I was doing some TikTok research to see if I was the only person feeling this way about this book, I saw quite a few posts saying, oh no, you have to read till book 5. Book 5 is where it really starts to get good. Like, excuse me? Book 5? Nah, y'all are tweaking if you think I'm gonna read 5 books to just get into the series. No way. So, hashtag DNFing the series, hashtag 2 out of 5 stars.